Like, here's the crazy thing. I imagine that I'd be in a position like that, and then I break it up. That makes me laugh. I actually think it's funny, like, going out and, like, if people are like, oh, hey, oh my god, fuck you, hey, fuck you, and I laugh, and I think that's funny, and I don't know, to me, that's just, like, that seems like the best experience ever, like, somebody who, like, has become brainwashed and then releasing them and just being like, enough, you can go now, you can just be yourself. One time, I shat my pants. Have a little cool glitch effect. I don't know, like the, you know, that, and then it like comes back on. Oh, hey. So it's hot out, guys. That's why you can hear a fan going, because going back to the episode where it was hot before, again, sometimes us being comfortable is more important than your listening experience. I hate to break it to you. Sometimes it's so hot where we're recording. If you have to hear a fan and you have to hear some background noise, then that's just it. Thank you guys for supporting us on that.
It's just a fan.
It's a fan.
Yeah.
You know, I like the idea of getting maybe a fan to hold a fan and fan us on hot days like this.
Like this, and it wouldn't make too much sound.
Yeah, exactly. The fan we currently have is kind of noisy. He talks. You can hear him kind of whispering.
He's a robot, actually.
Yeah, he is. Just like all our viewers.
From China. Maybe. Probably.
You never know.
But I'm actually... My shirt being off has nothing to do with the heat.
No.
You know what it has to do with?
What does that have to do with?
I'm not going to put a shirt on until there's equality in the world.
Equality?
Yeah.
I like that.
A quality assurance program.
I think that you should continue this trend. You should go your whole life and go to work.
Well, who's to say that? Who's to say that's going to be my whole life?
I mean, your whole life until that day, you know?
Yeah.
When it comes.
I will.
You know, I think the trend could follow. Can you imagine if everyone was like, until the problems are fixed in the world, until we have equality, until, you know, we get rid of poverty and everything, shirts are staying off.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's like really uncomfortable. Like one of the politicians, I can imagine. Okay, fine, we'll fix it. God, you're making us uncomfortable.
Wait, are the politicians wearing shirts or not?
Yeah, they are. They're still in the suits, but
I was imagining Mitch McConnell without a shirt on.
he joins the movement for some reason.
He's one of those guys that have like one of those bellies that go like this.
Yeah, he's got to have some, like, I don't know. I just imagine like some
almost no hair.
Yeah, no hair, but like wrinkled. Like, you know what I mean? Because he's old and it's sagging. Because he's
not
can
quite
you imagine
he's
that?
not quite sagging. I don't think. I was imagining just like pretty pale and no hair and like very plump, very kind of, you know.
Those suits are pretty tucked, I must say.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell he's squeezing in something in there. And
that's uncomfortable.
It is pretty uncomfortable. Especially when you imagine, I bet you it's wrinkly. It's wrinkly, it's saggy, it's old.
But
have you seen the face? Like,
yeah,
it matches the face.
What's
you know
the,
it does.
Do you think there's any difference between Oprah and Mitch McConnell? Because it's hard to make an argument from my point of view.
If there's any differences?
Yeah.
I think there's quite a bit of differences, unless there was a conspiracy theory out there that would suggest maybe Mitch McConnell does blackface and dresses up like a woman, and he does this because he wants to pretend like he's cool, but he's actually not. So he created this this fake character, which is very racist, because I mean, you're not supposed to do blackface, but He doesn't care.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about.
No?
No. I'm talking about like just dude, this is what I've been talking about for weeks, months. Just made up people.
Fake people.
What they say isn't what they actually think, and they get to decide how people view them. So just an inquiry, just a question, a good question, because I don't know why do we have to, like, Oprah versus someone in my family, you know? Oprah being an example of Oprah, Joe Biden, Ted Cruz, Tayo Cruz, um, Ty Lopez, Gary Vaynerchuk. You know what I'm saying? Why do those people? How are those also people that are the same as family members and friends and people you know and work with? They're not even. It's not even. They're not even. They're still people, but they're not. They're made up. They're not real.
Yeah, they're kind of just people who have made it into certain positions in life, and therefore, people they look at them as like some people like them, some people don't like them, but regardless, people are looking at them in the public eye, right? So they just become a character of importance, a made-up character of importance, because without their position or without what they are viewed as, they would be just like everybody else, They'd be like just like the average Joe walking on the street.
I know, but it's sort of like these people have become, I only know stories, but in ancient times or in earlier times, there was like, maybe it's called folklore. It's like some like myths from different cultures, right? Talking about this person was like this, and maybe their story had some sort of higher meaning that somebody could use in their life, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like in the Bible, there's like parables, or there's like stories and people to aspire to be like who are fictional.
Or like the Greek gods and things like that, the stories of them, right? There's
Yeah.
all the way through history, people have always made up tales and stories and put meanings to them,
Yeah, and so we knew those were, for the most part, we know those are fictional stories, right? But now the famous people of the world, they've taken over that genre of, kind of mythical creatures people talk about, famous people. It's kind of taken over that genre, and then so now there's not large enough of a separation between this is a story that people can aspire to be like, and this is a real person, and now we're going to treat this person like a hero, and we're going to think that humans are like this and put them up on a pedestal and say these are perfect people. These are the people that can't do anything wrong, and we're going to aspire to be like them. And so they're the local myths and like superheroes and people doing amazing things, but they're famous people, and they it's just hard for me to handle the fact that we're thinking we're people, you're a person and I'm a person, and they're also a person, right? But they're like, people are like this.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. I think it's an effect of us having those stories replaced with real life things in a media that's just so large, people can't even conceptualize how big it is. And then it also has to do with, along with those stories, you had kings and queens and very wealthy people. And back in the day, it was a very small group of people who were viewed as on this platform, right? And before, it was very controlled, and it was like the king and the queen. They're that is the godly people in the society, right? Like they own everything, they control everything. And now it's gone to this large scale where like it's a whole ton of people, and then you get media right involved. Right before there wasn't media, so you didn't even hear about the bad things that these people do. Right, it was just like they're good, and it was like, wait, but what do they do? Like, what do they do on a daily basis? Well, they want you to know these 5 things that they do, and that's all you need to know. I read it. I wrote it down here. Here's a picture of them. Can we see them in person? No. You get that photo. And say, okay. And then you move on to, like, videos, and people are like, oh, like, how about you say this? And then the person's like, fuck it, man. I don't like anybody. And then everyone's like, oh, fuck. Like, why is he saying this stuff? And now it's just madness, I think, on such a large scale where these people, it's even exposed that they're just normal people, right? And that some of them are sometimes kind of crazy, or sometimes not even good at all. Like, they do bad things, and they say things that are just really not good for somebody who's in that position of power, right? And so now there's like this whole messed up ecosystem, I suppose. It's like madness.
Yeah, that's the component of it that is crazy. That's the component of it is these people acting this way, and now we're documenting people who can't necessarily get away with, like you're saying, people that in the past could have. But I'm talking about like Brad Pitt, you know, and like Jennifer Aniston and like people like that. Those people aren't these people you're talking about.
I think
Oprah.
in some ways.
Oprah. Boom.
Because sometimes, you know, they'll say something that's kind of like, oh, that's weird, man. Why would you? Or like, why are you acting that way? Like, I think everyone, because cameras are always on, there's always moments like that get exposed. And I'll admit, there's some people that like I don't like Ted Cruz, for instance. I really don't like Ted Cruz. I've seen him talk on camera. I've seen him post on social medias before. I don't like him. I think he's the worst. But there's some people where it's like, you know, they're on camera 24/7 and they sometimes do something that's kind of weird, and it's like, okay, like I know I can feel what it would be like to be in that situation. But I also see some people feed into it. Like they really don't like it because I think they think that they're gods. Like the mindset of other people has gotten to them, and so they are drinking their own Kool-Aid, and it creates this really dysfunctional, I think, person sometimes who can't recognize that they're a human being anymore.
Yeah, I guess it's disassociative on both ends, but just the fact that you're gonna pretend like the medial, I don't know how to say it. Yeah, through media, the perception that somebody will portray of themselves, pretending like that is a honest representation of real life, and then using that representation to make comparisons about yourself, and also comparing that representation to other people that you know in like actual life. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of it creates a lot of problems in not only the lives of some of these people who they get to this level, right? And then they're viewed as something that's unhuman, right? Something beyond what being human is. And then they have to deal with that. And then sometimes they're believing this themselves. And then for all the people that are believing that, right? There's this ultra high standard that is moved onto other people. And some people want to be like that person. Some people want that status. So therefore they're trying to morph their behavior into this quote unquote perfect person that has been viewed like that for many people. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I have this thing where like I just want to like it's natural for people to make it to a stage like that where like if you have a lot of people watching what you're doing or you do something that becomes really successful, right? Of course there's going to be followings, and of course you're going to have people who view you as like this special kind of person, right? Someone who does something great or does something cool or does something is successful at something, right? But then there's that step further. that always gets me, where someone goes from that to being like, I'm perfect and I'm fantastic and that's right. That's
But
why
that's
they
what
like
everyone
me.
tells them that they are.
Yeah, but some people don't fall into that. You know, they remain more modest. And I sometimes think, like, I just wish that people could just act normal when they're in those positions. You know, they could just be normal people,
How
not
can it be
afraid to
normal
show
when
their
how can
flaws.
it be normal when everybody's coming up to you saying how cool you are and how they want you to talk to them, and
Just act
that's
yourself, you
not
know,
that
just
can't be
be.
normal. That can't be normal.
It can't be normal, but you can make it as normal as possible. Some people are more down to earth. They're more they're more, they don't act like this special person. They don't let it get to their head. They control it and they act more, just more normal, you know? Like when you go up to them, you feel like it's a, like in interviews too, like you can tell when someone is being normal and is like just kind of like riffing around, being
I think
themselves
that
versus
I
somebody
think
who
that
is
can be
sitting
faked.
there.
I think that can be faked.
It can be faked, but you can tell even like people who like who go and the way that they interact with other people. You know, you can tell when they're not afraid to say things that maybe would make them look bad, or maybe would make them would be a story that wouldn't tell them in the best light, right? Or they make a joke at their own expense. You know, they tell stories about them being human and messing up. You know what I mean? Those are things that I think are good, but there's some people who it gets to their head so much they can't relate to other people anymore. Like they think they can't.
Mm.
And they think they can't share their personal stories anymore. They won't share if something like crazy happens to them because they're like, oh, people are just going to think that I'm just a regular person.
Well, Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
So Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston used to. They're like some of the biggest stars of whenever that was, the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know my times, but they used to just sit in a hotel room together and say nothing, but they were the only person that could understand the position that the other person was in terms of how much pressure there was and how little you could, honestly interact with somebody else that didn't want something from you. You know,
There is that
so
element.
you wish people could just act normal, but it's like some of these people is pretty insane. Like,
There's different levels too.
yeah. So if you're at a different level, but all I'm saying is like that. I have no expectations for Michael Jackson, or Whitney Houston or whatever, is because literally every person knows who you are. Like, people weren't built to be like that. People weren't even built to know 500 people, and now we're knowing every person. So
Definitely, I think some people manage it better than others. Like you can, and it is different what you're famous for. If you're famous for being you, it's hard to escape that because you're you to the core, right? Like if you're doing stand up, you're telling stories, um, you can't really escape that reality because that's what they know you as. They know you as the regular person. If you're famous for something that's very selective, like art that you make, maybe, or music, right? The personality is separate. So your personality isn't in the public eye like it would be on stand up, or maybe if you're a YouTuber and you're doing content that frames you as a person, right? Or podcasting and stuff like that. You're famous for something else at that point. Versus if you're just doing music and people don't see any previous personality of you, you have to create a personality after you've become this famous person, right? People don't
okay.
know anything about you. So I can only imagine the pressures must change depending on what you're famous for as well.
But the two people I mentioned were singers.
True. That's what I'm thinking there might be a correlation with when you're doing that. Your personality needs to be created after the fact.
But I mean, your personality is in your music.
It is in your music, but there's still a lot more to fill in the blanks. And your music can be sometimes, let's say someone makes songs that aren't really going to, maybe they don't say some things, right? Or they don't want to show some parts of themselves, right? It's easy to just keep covering that up. Versus if someone did did like a whole entire bit or did something about just a whole ton of different moments in their life, right? And just told it honestly, brutal, raw truth. It's funny because it's so bad, or it's so crazy that this person did that, or it's so embarrassing for this person, right? That person has put themselves out on display, like naked, and therefore when they're famous, they were already naked from the beginning. There's really not much more to say, and new stuff that comes along, it's like, might as well just say it. They already know the rest of the stuff.
I know, but like actors are pretending to be other people, but I think they also have to like generate a personality that would be large enough to be able to go and promote movies and stuff, right? So it's all a performance of some sort. And what you're suggesting is different art forms have different levels of what it requires of you to be honest and genuine. But there's a lot of good stand-up comedians that aren't talking from their own perspective. They just do one-liner jokes. They just, here's a joke, this is funny. Maybe they'll use themselves as one of an example, like I did this and then this happened, but they're not saying, you know, my best friend got shot when he was 12 years old. You know, they're not, it's not intimate details. It's just them using themselves as a concept to be able to manipulate in a joke. So,
Yeah.
so that'd be an example of how stand-up you could do in different ways. You know, music. If you're some sort of visual artist, you're almost not in the work at all, and so you'd have. But also, how big you can't really explode as a visual artist.
Unless you paint your friend getting shot, or maybe you sing about your friend getting shot. There can be realism in that too. What I'm saying is that it depends on how you got famous. It can apply to music just as much as stand-up comedy. It depends on how much realness you've put forward and how much people are used to seeing. And I think you can still make that choice to say, I'm just going to be the true me when I go out in public, right? Somebody could do that. Sometimes people love it. I'm sure it's gone bad before as well. But you could still do that. But I think sometimes when people don't know if their true self is going to be accepted, maybe they put up a fake persona. And sometimes it's hard to keep up. Or sometimes that persona is too perfect. It's simply just too set in stone. And they don't know how to change it. But now, these people who follow them and who are fans of theirs, they have this standard that's what it is to be this perfect person, or that's what it is to be this person that this group of people idolizes, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, even partially a problem anyways, right? When somebody like they move on from being just like a fan of somebody's work or like enjoying something that somebody makes, but they go into like hardcore, this person is life for me, right? It's something that doesn't even involve themselves anymore, right? It's not about their enjoyment anymore. Mm-hmm. This person has become a god to some of these people. That's crazy. And sometimes when that person is just, they've presented this perfect person, right? Not only is it amplifying this effect that they're a god-like person because there's no mistakes in this person's life, but they're also being subjected to that, and they're putting that standard on themselves, which I think is like, it's just crazy how that happens. And this is me theorizing, by the way, why somebody would put up that persona, right? Versus taking maybe the more real persona that some celebrities put on, right?
Yeah, and my argument is that any person who has to interact with, you know, a large population to some degree is putting on a performance, even if the performance is coming from a genuine place.
Absolutely, yeah. They definitely are. There's just some people that they're willing to tell more, you know?
Sure.
They're willing to give a bit more, and they're willing to show mistakes.
It doesn't matter what... I'm not saying your argument doesn't mean anything, but I'm saying that can be applied to anything. Some people do more things than some people do less than other people.
Yeah.
So,
no.
like, in this field, there's, like, variance there, but that's true whether or not you're famous or not.
It definitely is. It's just interesting to kind of theorize and put together how some people might have ended up in certain positions, right? How some people end up to be this type of person, right? And they end up to have this sort of public persona versus someone else is a different one, and how that can be relayed onto the fans, and how that morphs that environment. You know, it's interesting to think that some people end up in a different place while other people's end up in another place. And I guess I'm saying if it was me, I would rather be in the position of being the person who is more open, right? Who has more just truth about them out there, or more true
And
things and
how do you know
stories.
that's what you would do or that's what you would like to do? Because who
That's
knows
just me. That's
who knows how hard that is to do?
Well, I don't. I think it's best to go through life not caring what your audience really thinks about. Like of course you're gonna naturally care about what your audience thinks about, but you're also going to you need to go forward not lying and not putting forward too much of a mask, because if you do, it's going to catch up to you after a while. And the people who I've admired in entertainment and stuff like that have just been people who are very are more forward. They tell stories about themselves that maybe it doesn't make them seem perfect. They're willing to show their scars a bit. They're willing to show mistakes that they've made, embarrassing moments. They share those things. And that's something that I respect a lot. Or people who go out into public and they don't care. They interact with people and they don't care what people think. They act like themselves, and no matter how that turns out, it doesn't matter. And even if it is a character like Sacha Baron Cohen, or if you look at Eric Andre, right? They go out into public, they really don't care. It's kind of like they're going out there and they're playing a character and they don't care what the rest of the world thinks about them, or what somebody else in society is going to walk down the street and say, well, that's a weird person. It doesn't matter, you know? I've just always respected that a lot. And I think that it feels like a more healthy way to go about life, because then you're not worried what other people think about. You're just telling your story. You're interacting with people from one person to another. You're saying, here's my story. I hope you think it's funny. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, so those two guys you mentioned, they're funny, but they're also kind of being disrespectful in a sense. So
Sometimes
you
maybe
want
a
to
little bit. But
you want to be authentic, but like at whose expense, I guess. And that's one of the things about
it's kind of punching up, though, don't you think? Like, better to like punch up than punch down. Like,
well, they could be making fun of Kazakhstan in a way, and that's not punching up.
no, that wouldn't be punching up.
And
but,
people, unsuspecting people that think that you're an honest person, and they're inviting you in their house and cooking you dinner and stuff, and you're taking advantage of them. So, I mean, it's hard to please anybody, but I mean, I get you what your point was, but
moving on between, like, not just going to that end, right? But even like when it comes to somebody telling a story in like stand up, or there's musicians who pull it off too. They tell something that's really raw in their music, right? They'll go on, and when they talk about it, you can tell they're sharing something that may be perceived as uncomfortable to somebody else, right?
okay.
But it's something that it's real, and it's something that's more exposed, and someone's not afraid to say it and be honest and straightforward with the people who enjoy their art, their music, their comedy, whatever it happens to be. I've just always respected people who do that. So whenever from what I've consumed, right? I consume people who also maybe put on a bit of a persona, right? But from what I've seen, I would rather be the person who is more honest and straightforward, and isn't afraid to be me. Because then even I feel like you're open to more art forms then too, right? You can do this if you want to. You can do that if you want to. You can be ultra honest and just go straight for it if you want to as well. You don't have to hide anything. That feels healthy to me. That's what I'd rather shoot for.
Yeah.
I just don't like it when... I guess I don't like it when people, like... Some of the people that get into those positions, when they put on the mask, right? And they really put on the buffer, and they really become the person who is supposed to be perfect, and they're like, okay, that's what I'm setting, and I'm gonna keep it up, right? And I feel sympathy for them sometimes because I'm like, who knows? Maybe they really don't. They feel like they have to do that, right? But sometimes I'm like, man, like you feed into it as well, you know. You don't take steps to change it or change somebody like idolizing you to the point where it's crazy. You have a cult at this point, right? Like you could curb that. You could try to release them into the real world and let them be more human like. Let them enjoy mistakes and let them actually like laugh about problems in their lives and maybe like not keep up this big like perfect godlike persona. And they're like, no, they feed into it all the time. They feed into like, yes, I'm a god. Yes, I'm this demigod who can't make any mistakes. And that's where I'm like, there's a problem with you. Like
Yeah.
you like.
But until we know what it's like to be that person, then who knows how hard that decision is to make.
I'll definitely agree there. If you're not already in a position when you get there to where you're.
What if everyone was calling you a god? How would you know how you would respond?
Maybe I'd go tell them to all fuck themselves.
Well, I don't know, but all I'm saying is we don't know, and so it's hard for me to judge anybody because I don't know what it's like to be in that position. We can absolutely say that it becomes a problem for a lot of people, but to say that we wouldn't do the same thing that they're doing, I mean, I think that's just an irrational thing to say because we are. The only guarantee is that we are 100% unaware.
It's true. I
like.
just imagine it. Sometimes I have this like here's the crazy thing. I imagine that I'd be in a position like that and then I break it up. That makes me laugh. I actually think it's funny like going out and like if people are like, "Oh, hey, oh my god, fuck you, hey, fuck you," and I laugh and I think that's funny. And I don't know. To me, that seems like the best experience ever. Like somebody who like has become brainwashed and then releasing them and just being like, enough. You can go now. You can just be yourself. One time, I shat my pants, and just everyone's like, and you're like, fuck you, dude, go away, or something like that. I don't know. It's extreme, right? That's an extreme thing. But to me, I don't know what it is. For some reason, for me, I like to break things up like that. I don't know if people have been able to tell, but like, whenever there's something going on, I'm telling you, I love breaking things up that are just like
Once you get some fans,
concrete.
Once you get some fans, let me know if you do that.
I think I will. I think about this all the time. Like I think about like not even like just like that, but like going on to like when there's like again jumping through the window of like Mark Zuckerberg's office. I feel like sometimes like I don't know if other people think about these things, but I think about them. I think about like, you know, the solid structure of like, and this is perfect and everyone's suffering and it's perfect. Boom, with a sledgehammer. Boom, boom, beating it up into small bits, into dust, and then being like, there, everyone, do what you want to do. Like, release. You're released from this. Run as fast as you can before they try to cast the concrete again.
They'll just go find someone else.
No. I tell them, like, listen, you're
just promoting anarchy is what you're saying.
You know, I'm not I don't think I'm an anarchist. I like order, and I understand why it's important, but when I see things that are like these weird, like, perfect like systems that are just fragile, just always sitting on the ice, right? And then you have like that perfect person does something and then they get like canceled, right? It's like, well, what did you think when you put these standards up for yourself and then you broke them? Like, that's what I mean. I just imagine coming in there with like the sledgehammer, like, just like, stop this, everybody, all right? Let's stop it. There's no such thing as a demigod. There's no such thing, okay? It doesn't exist. This little kid, oh, but I think you're demigod. No, there doesn't exist. I'm sorry. It's not real. Time to become your own person, okay? Time to use your own brain, think your own thoughts. Stop being a hive mind. Like, and that's what I think, and I don't know if I'm the only one. I don't know if, like, maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm just...
No, that's basically what I said in much more relaxed terms. Like my first comment in this conversation. It was about the fact that it is set up this way of people being on different levels.
Yeah, it's...
it just I guess you said that your intent was to be honest, but also, are you also performing to for an effect? Like,
I don't think so. In my head, I imagine like that. How do I say this? It's like that to me. I think it would be fun to illustrate that in a setting where like maybe it's not supposed to be set up that way, right? Or doing something new, doing something that breaks the boundaries. I love the idea of breaking the whatever like structure, and not all structure is bad, okay? But structures that are negative or structures that force people into like little like cast iron boxes and they can't get out of. I enjoy the idea of like.
And then what? People have no.
No,
the people that system was supporting fall to the ground.
No, you change it. You change it to something that's more viable. That's
you said you like breaking it apart. You didn't say anything about.
Like maybe people need to live in a house and they need to stop living in a concrete box. Like maybe they don't need to live like this. They can live like this. They can live like in a zone. You know, I don't know. I just.
Cool.
That's just me like. That's me just passionately expressing what I'd imagine, the sledgehammer thing. It's over dramatic, I'll give you that, right? But that's just my raw feeling coming out in the form of a really extreme set of examples. That's what I feel, at least.
I see. Yeah, dude, I'm all for improving things. I'm just 2 points. Unless we have a really good map for the future, tearing it down is just going to cause problems, I believe. And the second one is it's this idea that people aren't aware of how many bad things that they're capable of doing, right? So
yeah.
The idea is everyone would say, I wouldn't be Hitler, and you probably wouldn't. But would you be one of the soldiers at a concentration camp if you were, just brought up in that era in Germany and you got recruited to be in the army or whatever, whatever their army is?
They've done experiments.
We probably would be.
Yeah, there was a guy who did electroshock experiments. It wasn't real like electricity, but they'd call people in, right, in the U.S., and they'd have them sit down, and basically they said every time someone gets this something wrong, I think like it was a question or something that they had to get right, they get buzzed for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the shocks slowly build up in electricity to the point where the people are screaming on the other side. You can't see
and the person
anybody.
can't see him. I remember this.
Yeah, but because there's a guy in a white lab coat telling them, like, you're going to ruin the experiment if you don't continue, most people continued.
Even though they're shrieking.
Yeah, exactly. Because when there's an authority figure, sometimes it's easy to fall in place.
I think that's a cop-out, though. To say that because there was an authority telling you to do it, that you're not personally responsible for it.
What about fear, though? Like, fear for your life. Like, I think there's a lot of different things that make people not want to stand out.
I know. Okay, so for many people, it probably was that way. But for some people, they just thought they were doing the right thing, even though they were murdering people and beating them to death, right? But they thought they were doing the right thing. And, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they just enjoyed doing that thing, but had they not been in that position, they never would have murdered anybody. So
that's true. If they were born elsewhere, they probably wouldn't have ended up doing what they did.
Even though they were capable of doing it.
Yeah.
And so vice versa, people who are not born under those circumstances, believing that other circumstances wouldn't change the fact that they think that they would not do horrible acts. But all I'm saying is we do not know unless we are put in those circumstances.
Absolutely,
and in the case of being these famous people, or in the case of being any of these political leaders, all I'm saying is unless we are personally in those circumstances, we don't know what these people should do, and we also don't know what kind of things go into the decisions that they have to make. And so they may be doing evil, horrible things, but how do you know that you or I would not do evil or horrible things in the same position?
Okay, I think there's very drastic examples where like you can throw in like being born in a different place, a different region, a different time period, different parents. There's a lot of different elements that you can throw in, right? That would change somebody's even mindset alone, right? But when you're talking about like a position, right, or a job that you can get, there's some things you don't know about that job, but there's only certain things that I could imagine really persuading me from maybe doing something or saying something, right? If there was something that I didn't like that was a part of a job that I was doing and I felt that I couldn't do, I could stop it. I could nip it in the bud, or I could say something, or I could do something even if it pisses people off, right? People with like in positions of power, coworkers, whatever, right? It pisses them off, but it's not going to physically harm me, right? But let's say, again, I don't know that there's like some guy with a gun, right? Or like I end up like thrown out of a window or something, and that's crazy, right? It's some extreme example, but let's say that would happen, right? Then maybe I'm scared and I'm like, well, fuck, this is fucking awful, right? I might even be sad about it, and just go into this like cocoon where I'd be like, fuck, oh, I didn't know. Like I thought that once I got here, I could make changes and just piss people off, and it wouldn't matter, right? Because they get pissed, and I just keep doing what I'm doing until whatever happens. I have to stop, or I have to retire, whatever it is. But then if there's like death or there's like fear, maybe that changes things, right? But
No, I'm not even suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that these people are just put in these certain positions where they have certain authority and they have certain power with no consequences. Right, so this is like the Nazi concentration camp guard, right? But in terms of these politicians having a certain amount of power that's, unchecked in certain regards. So who's to know what we would be if we had unlimited power and the absence of fear that we're going to get reprimanded for it? We can't decide how we would act in that situation, or even judge people who do make decisions in that position. And that's only from what we can see. All I'm suggesting is that based on what is known fact to the public, it still would be hard to make good decisions in those positions of power. Not to mention all of the things that happen behind the scenes that actually influence what your job actually entails and how that's different from what the public perceives. And that's true for political things and as well as, any form of celebrity in a lot of different fields. We're unaware of what happens behind the scenes, and then we're going to make judgments about their character and their decisions, even though we don't have any of the information.
I think that's true, and in some cases, again, I think sometimes somebody goes in, this is mainly probably for politics, but even, let's say celebrities, you want to try and change something, right? And with your influence, you plan on doing that, right? You can go in, I think a lot of people do, this happens to them, they go in and they realize they can't do anything, right? They realize that the system is forged in a way where they alone cannot do anything, right? If they want to get reelected, let's say, right, as for a politician, they have to work with the lobbyists. They have to do certain things. They have to sell out a bit of their morals to keep.
So this is your assumption based on the known information, just by the way.
Yeah, based off of the known information. But we know that there are compromises made for certain individuals due to lobbyists. We already know lobbyists exists. There's this pretense of whining and dining, of
sure,
exchanging favors, and some of these politicians going in, they don't know everything about the field. Sometimes the lobbyists know more than them, and when it comes to crafting laws and stuff, right? So, but let's say there's definitely so much more that we don't know unless you're in that position, right? Unless you're serving, unless you're working around a position like that, right? Let's say you can't get something done, right? But let's say there's a way, right? Let's say there's a way, and you go into it like wanting to change things, or like you're definitely gonna do something. It's ride or die, basically, right?
Okay.
I think there's certain mindsets that you get into as you keep going through life that when you get there, eventually you think, how hard can I push, right? And maybe that's another thing, because I think like how how stirred up are you about this? Like, how much are you like, how much would it drive you crazy if you got knocked down? And how far would you push? And how much consequence would you be willing to take for how hard you push, right? And if you're going to push and it might kill you or something, I don't know. There could be consequences beyond what somebody could possibly know, right? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe you just lose your job, and maybe that's part of the consequence, right?
Okay.
Who knows what's in place? But I think it depends on how hard you're willing to push to test the boundaries, I think, as well, once you go in. And some people, throughout their life, they've been groomed for certain positions, right? Or they've been told that this position is so valuable, if you lose it, that's it, right?
Okay.
And I don't know. I think it really depends. It depends on who you are at that certain time in your life, right? How young are you? How old are you? How are you doing? Maybe even...
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Yeah. Like, how are you feeling?
Sure.
All these things are going to play a big part in what happens when that person goes in and how that affects what they decide to do. Or even again, like, think about it, if some of these people who have more of a open persona, right? Some of them who started acting in a certain manner, or maybe even just acted like themselves and they got popular from acting like themselves, right?
Okay.
Let's say they didn't do that. Maybe they wouldn't be able to get to that point. Maybe it was their dream to get to that point too, but the stuff that they produced wasn't showing a lot of themselves, right? It just so happened that the art that they were making didn't have a lot of themselves in it directly, right? So then when they wanted to show their persona to the world, they couldn't show that persona out of fear. Or maybe they realized their audience completely was different than what they were aiming for in the beginning. There's a lot of different things that I think could influence it, but I think there's a lot of, like, where you are in your life when something happens.
Yeah, I agree. The main point I just keep coming back to is we don't know how we would act in those situations. We can't judge these people. You know, even people who are committing atrocities, there is inciting incidents that leads them down that path. And that's not the beginning of the path. That's near the end of the path, probably, for this person in terms of how far that you're talking about pushing it, but how far they take it down this road to get there. It's probably a gradual progression to get down there. And, generally people are somewhere on any spectrum, but every person is personally somewhere on that spectrum. And, it's not that many steps away to get to this thing. Like somebody would, in talking about acts of violence, somebody would kill somebody else if they were trying to be killed. I might kill somebody else, right? So these circumstances, but once you've defended yourself killing somebody, then you may be more likely to do something else a little bit more violent. Who knows how that changes an individual? And just one last point on this. The only way I can think of to describe this is if you have an electric eel, okay, and let's say people think that, let's say, Joe Biden is an electric eel, okay? They think that. Okay? But actually, he's a gardener snake. Okay? And so now they're seeing him, he's not even in the water. They're like, what the fuck is he doing on land in the grass? Slithering around. He doesn't have any, he can't, somebody touches him, doesn't even get shocked. What the hell is this? That's them seeing his action. They're trying to judge an electric eel, but it's actually a gardener snake. So I can't even have this conversation with anybody because look, we don't even know what this is. This is made up shit. This is as made up as SpongeBob. This is as made up as SpongeBob making up Doodle Bob. This is right. I can't even have a conversation about this. But that's all people talk about.
I think you can only sometimes speculate in some scenarios, and it's if you think about it, things that people say, oftentimes they can only come up with the best rationale that they can. And there's some things, again, that like there's evidence. Sometimes there's more things that back up some proposals than others. But at the end of the day, all people can do is have discussions, present what they've seen, present what they've found, what evidence there is. And sometimes no evidence at all. Sometimes somebody can produce just a theory, right? Just a simple theory about something. Life is kind of a series of just discussions and propositions and, a series of things to try to make things work and piece the puzzle together as best as we can. And sometimes they're just a part of the puzzle that's just madness. There's just scattered all over the place. And people are like, what is this? Someone just is like threw blocks in the middle of the puzzle, and no one even knows what to say about that.
Yeah, speaking of blocks, I got the FedEx truck stuck yesterday, and we tried to place wood underneath the tire to lift it up far enough for me to get out.
Dang.
So, like, the front of the truck was, like, up a hill, and the back of the truck, like, the tail gate or whatever you call it, got stuck on a hill. So it was, like, just the front tires touching, and then this thing is touching, and then the wheels were kind of, like, lifted off the ground. And so you're talking about this process of speculation and trial and error about how to solve or to try to dissect or create a model of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that, there's only so many variables that can go into this. Okay, the tailgate is stuck. I'm not getting enough power to my back wheels. Things like that. So, yeah, I'm cool making speculation and trying and testing out different things here, but with virtually no information and a guarantee that we are not understanding this process, if I don't have, I can guarantee we have less than 15% of the information. So what are we trying to work on? What are we trying to have a conversation about? If we're let's say we completely figure it out, our piece, 85% still unknown. It's not an electric eel, okay? Why are you? What if Joe Biden was a worm and we're trying to judge him about being an electric eel? He was a worm. He had no eyes. He's in the dirt. You cut him in half, and now he's two Joe Bidens.
Okay. Well, okay, so I think it's kind of like this. So there's a lot of things that we don't know in life, right? We don't know a lot about a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that we're pretty sure is true. We're almost 100% sure, and there's a lot of things that we can discuss. And the things that we don't know, the spaces that we have to fill in later on down the road, or the stuff that we have a pretty concrete idea that we have figured it out, there's still something to discuss, because those are the things that are being applied in real life as it stands. So people have to discuss it so that we can kind of change how we're doing things based off of what we know, because that's how society is running. That's how people are changing and evolving. We're discussing what we know on the table. It's like collecting new cards, collecting.
Yeah, my argument is
puzzle.
we don't know this arena.
But we have something set up because of what we know.
We know what's right in front of us. We know what kind of challenges we're facing in our personal lives, but I would be very hard to convince me that we know anything about this arena.
I would say there's a lot that we don't know, but there's also a lot that we have set up based off of what we do know, and we have to change those things, because once we know new information and we're seeing problems come up because of it, and I mean, a lot of people would argue that we don't do this well enough as is, but we need to discuss quickly, we need to come together, we need to change how we're doing things, because what we know changes all the time.
We can change things outside of what you're talking about, the political realm.
Not just the political realm.
That's mainly what I'm saying. We don't know about this, and we can focus our energy on things that we do know, and create, reliable and sustainable changes in our lives. That's all I'm suggesting. That because of how powerful the media outlets are surrounding these issues and these things, that we are 100% these rabbit holes of they're just these crazy magnetized groupings of individuals and corporations that will suck you into them so far that they're touting this 5 to 10% of information, and it sucks you in, and it won't even allow you to focus on what's right in front of your face. So if you're it's not even worth it to try to even go in, and because it's so unknown, and because all these other things are so much more known.
But we have to have discussions. We have to keep learning. We have to talk about things, because that's the only way that we're going to learn new stuff and change. And you can find pieces of information that aren't so controlled or contrived. And you don't have to be pulled into those things. You can still decipher information and keep up to date somewhat just by being selective and by trying to find stuff that and looking who's behind something as well, looking who's behind it and saying,
I know,
where
but
can
to
I
what
search?
end? Let's have an example of what's valuable to learn about in terms what's valuable to learn about politically.
Just politically? I was talking more about just even world events and stories that people share, telling them about their problems, and they need help and they need people to come together.
I'm fine with
problems
that.
around the world that actually need to be passed through laws, and learning about even our government and how it operates and how it's flawed in so many different ways. Even big interest, learning about information that maybe wouldn't be beneficial to somebody who's pretty big and flying high up there and has a lot of power. Basically talking about it and just discussing different point of views and coming to a point where we can change so that we can escape the problems that we're experiencing now and move on. And even if it's not perfect, that's what we've done from the beginning of time. We've just slowly moved and inched our way forward into the future. And it's important that stuff continues, but that we also don't let these problems get too much out of control, because otherwise things could go really bad after a while.
Yeah, so you said that you weren't just talking about political things, but then you did end talking about political things,
well,
and
personal
talking about
stories. I don't
how
think
how our government isn't functioning
that
and stuff
was
like
political.
that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you can look at it objectively, that's great, but there's landmines everywhere in that arena. So I just my energy is not going to be wasted sifting through things that just might explode in my face, and be a waste of time, because there's plenty of other things to uncover and skills to develop to make you more functional and more capable of handling things and generating and creating a world that you do want, that isn't basically what this whole thing you're talking about based in fear, but this whole thing in terms of engagement and outrage and this information presented in a certain way to keep people in this cycle that freezes people in time. Essentially, it freezes people in time, and it will take them until the day they die, frozen in that same world. It'll
a bubble.
It'll just go boom, snap. Here, 45 years later, you're going to die. You're in the same world, okay? Frozen. They're freezing people. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Millions of people. So all I'm trying to do is, create alternatives. Create something that's possible for someone not to have to live under these circumstances and become and live in this state of basically paralysis until the ending of your life, because somebody is feeding you information that may not be true, but is also designed in a certain way to not allow you to think independently and allows you to be used as a statistic or used as a certain demographic in order to fulfill somebody else's plan and desires.
I think it depends, like, if you're getting consumed in stuff, like consumed in politics, or if you're getting consumed in some of these what these media sites and what these big corporations have set up, that's a huge problem, and it's unhealthy, and it's absolutely not okay. If you're going to just consume yourself into it, get angry, and feed into the cycle of anxiety and clicking.
We don't have the personal control or the ability to withhold ourselves from this. It's too powerful.
I mean, if you just treat it like a this is how I view it. I view it as, I like to stay up to date. I like to know what's going on, but I also don't like to spend all my time staring at a computer screen or staring at a bunch of different articles. So I'm very selective with what I look at.
The and a.
And the and a.
Aren't those the only two articles in the English language?
The and a.
You know, the light blue triangle in language?
I don't think I know.
You know, noun, preposition, article.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
You don't like to have those. You don't like to look at articles all the time. It's
don't
pretty
like
hard
to
to
look at
read, I
articles.
bet.
I think I'm not catching on the nouns, and I got the nouns and the
No, and a.
The and a.
I'm pretty sure those are articles. That's the part of
articles.
speech.
Articles of speech. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought when you said I get the joke now. The articles of speech, and articles as in you're reading an article.
Yeah.
I get it now. I get it. I don't know why that connection took me so long to get it. I was like, wait, verbs and nouns and I see.
Yeah, we were being serious, and then I made an association. But yeah,
I think it's not good to get lost in that, though. I'm agreeing with you. I think it's bad when people do that, but I also think there's some people out there who rely on us to stay somewhat educated and somewhat aware of what people in government are doing. And some people rely on the government so much. Like, some people are lucky. Like, I'd say we live in a state that's like, we're lucky enough to not be too reliant on maybe even government programs, or some laws maybe won't affect us as much. But there's some people who they need all of us to look at some of these issues and hear their stories, and then go to these politicians and say, this is unacceptable. Like, you can't just keep ignoring these problems out there, because we see it, we've heard the stories, and we know there's a big percentage of the population who wants this done. And maybe it's not a big enough portion to where they could do it alone, but if we all maybe come together and say, fixing this it's going to be beneficial for a large portion of people, compared to maybe it's just like 5 big companies that would lose maybe 0.5% of their profit or something. And that's just a random example. I don't know what that would pertain to, but I just think staying somewhat up to date is good, but don't let it consume you. Don't let it make you angry, and don't buy into. If you know for a fact something is biased, or you know that something is coming from a place where it's absolutely somebody who's feeding money in to try and get you to come away from this with a certain perspective, or to be angry or anxious, turn away, or don't let information affect you like that, But I think we don't all have to do it either, because sometimes I've heard from some people who say, I can't read it because I get upset. And I think that's fine. You don't have to read it, but there's got to be some people watching. That's my only thing. There's got to be some people watching. There's got to be some people who are monitoring what people are doing, because when people just can do whatever they want and no one's watching it, they'll start doing whatever they want without any controls,
Yep. And I'm saying that it's not really realistic to basically, if let's say somebody has advice for the general public, right? If a large percentage of them aren't going to be capable of being aware of the dangers, and also being able to extract information while being safe, if let's say over 70% of people aren't going to be capable of doing that, then that can't be my general advice or stance, is that that's what people should do. You know?
But I mean, it's difficult to say who, and that's the difficult thing too, because you can tell somebody, like even in like from a school perspective, that like it's good to somewhat stay up to date, right? You don't know what that means to that person, and you don't know how hard someone's gonna take that, or how much stress it puts on them, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't any. Maybe some people just enjoy knowing what's going on, and maybe some people hate it, but they feel like they have to, right?
Yeah.
That's a hard one, because you have to make sure people know how to stay up to date who want to, you know? And you have to make sure that people know, or at least get better at vetting information, because I think that's one problem that people feed into is they find this information and they don't know how to vet whether it's where it's coming from, you know? They're starting to do that more now. They're trying to tell people, like, look at where this information is coming from, but sometimes people don't know how to do that. And then this stuff isn't even regular information that someone's feeding you. This isn't somebody telling you, like, here's something that happened or here's a story that happened. This is somebody going in there and either making up information to make you angry or anxious, or they're retelling the story in their own way to try and put a different biased spin on it, which usually has implications of someone walking away angry. Because someone is telling you, like, I don't like that this is happening, and here's what I think is going to happen if it's how I think it is. And so I think it's like information that's been cracked up, just injected with heroin, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Angry heroin, and just pushed onto people. And then when people are consuming this, they're getting angry and they keep feeding into it, rather than reading information that maybe is kind of boring, but you're taking away what you need to, and you're saying, I'm through with that. I'm done. That's my daily information intake, and I'm moving on.
Yeah. But there's some people that, like, even let's say you do a good job of extracting, you know, what you believe are proper facts, then the deliberation process about these, the way you communicate with other people who have not been extracting information safely, how will you have a beneficial conversation with somebody if they're not doing it safely? They're not doing it that way. So you want to have meaningful conversations, but it's just you're going to run into a brick wall every time if they've been smoking that crack.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, you see it all the time. Sometimes two people who are like polar opposites, right?
Yeah, North and South Pole. It's crazy.
Yeah, it pretty much is like that. They're so far apart, and there's no... I mean, we talked about this before, but just like polarity, right? Like, ironically, the poles, but we're so far apart, right? That there's no agreeing with somebody, or there's, like, people take it personally if somebody disagrees with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's an opinion, like, sometimes it's not even, like, wrong facts. It's just somebody states an opinion that somebody doesn't agree with, and then that person becomes this, like, demonized character because they have a different opinion. So I don't even know. I don't know how you have a conversation. All I can say is try and be open-minded, and maybe try... If two people could maybe go into something realizing that maybe they could also be wrong, you know? Even if they're debating something, they could be wrong as well. And that it's all like clay. Nothing is like hard in stone, and nobody's out to get somebody, or no one is like trying to do something bad, you know? It's just two people having a discussion. Because I think that discussions are important and debates are important, but if it's going to make two people hate each other, then there's no point. But it's kind of sad that has to happen.
Yep, that's just why I steer clear of it. Anybody can choose to do what they want to do, but it's just a bunch of eels, man, electric eels. But did you hear about this thing where the CIA murdered one of the leaders in the Black Panthers?
The Black Panthers?
You know the Black Panthers, right?
Yeah. I did not. What? When did Is that recent?
No, it was like in the heyday of the Black Panther movement. It was like in Chicago. This guy, I don't know what they called them. They just came out a movie with it on HBO.
Ah.
It's called Judas and the Black Messiah. Basically, there was this one guy. I don't remember his name, but basically he got arrested for stealing a car, and then they kind of said, "Hey," and he was impersonating a federal officer because he was pretending to be an FBI agent.
Mm.
And so it's 5 years in prison plus like 8 months for stealing the car. So they said, "Hey, we won't make you go to prison if you infiltrate these Black Panthers and give us information about this leader or just about the whole group." So he did that. They imprisoned. I don't want to ruin the whole movie, but it's this whole process of how this guy ended up getting killed by the CIA.
Damn, that sounds good. I'm gonna have to check that out.
And yeah, then after he died, like 12 years later, it took 12 years in court, but finally there was a settlement between the guy's mom and the CIA, and the CIA paid her $1.8 million because they admitted to it.
Damn. Yeah,
he was like the inspirational leader, like, the glue, like igniting people to, push forward in the movement.
Dang.
Yeah, kind of a violent movie.
I can only imagine that it would be. That was a period of time too. There was a lot going on, like civil rights and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna check that out. That sounds really good.
I don't know what era this was. It was after Martin Luther King also got murdered by somebody, potentially law enforcement. And Malcolm X, did he get murdered also?
Yeah, he did. He got murdered though by oh man, I took a class in college, and we watched a movie about him, and oh man, I know he was killed while he was giving a speech. A guy walked up and shot him, but I can't remember. He was from a group, and I can't remember what he was from, but oh, I wish I knew. I just don't want to say the wrong thing because I'd just be guessing at that point. I have like a few in my mind, but yeah, he was killed though. He was also shot.
Okay. Yeah, pretty intense stuff, dude. But that goes back to my equality thing. We got to. I'm not putting my shirt back on.
Keep on going.
Unless it gets too cold.
When the winter comes around, you might have to. You might have to start thinking like,
we'll
"Hey
see.
guys." What if you could find a clear, like you could still do it maybe, like you could still like find a clear jacket, and you could say, "I'm." Like the statement I feel like is you all are gonna see this until equality happens. I feel like is the statement. I feel like it's pretty powerful. Like I imagine. Oh, can you imagine if someone like who was actually like a senator did that, took off their clothes and said, I'm gonna go to every single Senate hearing in my undies, unless equality happens.
And they call them undies.
They call him undie man. And
yeah,
he gets really mad, like he can like jump out on the table and be like, "Hey!" And, like if he doesn't like something, he threatens to like pull down his underwear, and he's like, "It's happening today." And people are like, "No, okay, we can talk about this." He's like, "I don't like it. I don't like where this is going." Like he sees something that's like a detection meter, and then he goes. People are like, "Okay, we'll change it." He's like, "Okay."
Well, that's one way to do it. Public nudity. We could do it.
One day.
All right. I think we're in pretty good shape.
I think so too. It is getting hot. I don't know how long we've been going.
1:13.
1:13? That's not bad, I guess. I feel like it's good to have that hour. You know, that hour threshold. Yeah. Like having that standard is at
least an hour 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Take your shirt off for equality.
I know you're feeling hot. You can see it through the camera.
Okay, and this is a new segment called New Segment.
Oh, Man, oh jeez, I love when that happens. That's so great. Oh man.
Say as many names as you can think of.
There's many names. Oh, okay.
Jimmy,
Jerome,
John,
Jack,
George,
Chip,
James,
Charlie,
Harriet,
Carge. You don't know. It could be-
Billy,
did we say Bill yet?
Yeah.
Oh, we did.
Man, this is
Bob.
gonna be bad if we. Sasha.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of what we said before it. Will,
You're sticking around that family. Jessica.
Wilbur,
Emiliano.
Juan,
Jesus.
There's so many. Now we're getting into names where it's like, let's see, Giorgio. You say Giorgio?
No.
Yeah, that's like the. I was thinking like more Russian, but I mean it could be Giorgio.
Francis.
Francis. Have we said Frank?
No, Paul.
Frank and Beans.
Paul.
Let's see. Ringo from the Beatles.
Paula.
Ron Weasley.
Hermione.
Harry.
Dirk.
Dirk. Dang, that's like a. Have we said Derek?
No.
That's one.
Lily.
I don't think we've said my name. What about Jesse?
Okay. Jamie.
Have we said Jake?
No.
That's Jake, yeah. It's another one on there.
Tiffany.
Tommy.
Hugo.
Hugo Boss. See,
See,
the weird
those
thing
stores
about
are
this
by
is
each
that,
other.
like, somebody could say, like, my name's Boss, man. Like, someone could.
No fake names.
Okay, but, like, I just am wondering, like, there's got to be somebody named Boss out there.
No fake names.
My name's Boss.
No fake names.
All right. Eli.
Ian.
Ellie.
What is that?
Ellie.
Oh, okay. Gabrielle.
Gabrielle. What about, have we said Emily yet?
No, Megan.
Megan Fox. Could someone be named Fox?
No.
I'm Fox, man.
No, I said no fake names.
But it makes you wonder, because, like, what if somebody did out there name their kid Fox? Like, can we deny them that...
Okay.
That they're... Can we deny
common
them...
Common names.
Common names, okay. Okay. What about Raj?
Rob.
Raj and Rob. Robbie.
Okay, I guess Robbie. Stan.
What about Bonnie?
Kathleen.
Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde.
Kyle.
Oh. What about Kylie?
Cooper.
Cooper. DB Cooper, like the guy who's getting the criminals out there.
That's one of them.
Let's see. Oh man, there's so many that we've named already. Now they're all starting to blur together. We got. It's another weird one. We got Khaled, DJ Khaled, but Khaled maybe wouldn't be a first name. But what if someone my kid's name is Khaled? He's DJ Khaled.
What?
DJ Khaled.
No.
Okay. Wait, but Khaled is a last name, right? Maybe, but could it be a first name? Is my question. Okay. I'll change it. We'll just go like There's so many names that like maybe would be unconventional, like Kylene, right?
Sorry.
What about Kylene?
No.
But Kylene could be like.
You know plenty more names.
What
Dude.
about Kaylin?
Okay.
Wait, no, but
Yeah.
did you already say that though? You might have already said that.
I didn't say
I
Kaylin.
feel like you might have said that.
I know I
Okay.
didn't.
Damn.
Daniel.
Daniel, Tosh. But Tosh can't be a first name unless it was like. What about if someone's name was Tashi?
Common names, bro.
What if it was? I mean, it could be a combination.
You're gonna be
name for all
disqualified
we
if you
know.
ask. If
Okay,
you ask
well,
again.
you never know. But what if, like, I'm just saying. Some people are named Ducky. They are. It's true. I mean,
Matthew?
like,
You mean Matthew?
Matthew?
Mark, Luke, John. You know.
There's those ones,
the,
but we already said John, though. I think I'm pretty sure we already said
Judas.
John. We didn't say Judas, but even that one is like kind of like that's probably just as popular as Ducky.
Joshua.
Joshua.
That's Jesus' name. Did you know that?
Joshua.
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 Joshua with a Y.
Interesting.
Yeah. Mary, Joseph.
June. June's the first name that's been used. Before.
Okay.
June.
Lady.
About Julio.
Okay. What about Max?
Have we said Ian yet?
Yeah.
Have we said Marilyn?
No, we didn't say that.
Okay.
Lauren.
You see, there's so many unconventional names that keep popping in, and then I get past names jumping in there. I just keep thinking, it could be interesting. Like, what about?
Well, there's plenty of family members' names, and you have friends named Zach.
I guess Zach would work. I just keep thinking of names that are
What
unconventional.
about Pilford?
Pilford?
Yeah.
What about like Zeke?
Zeke's
That's
cool.
an interesting name.
Zeke's fine. Dion?
Dijon.
Nope.
You never know. What Dion?
Deontay, DeAndre.
What about like
Andre?
There's one person named Dijon out there.
No.
Dijon.
Dijon? You mean like D-E''
Maybe, yeah.
He's French.
He could be French, and then he turns into a French rapper, and they call him the Mustard Man. And he goes,
Mustard! Mustard!
and he goes, I'm Dijon Mustard.
There's DJ Mustard.
DJ Mustard?
Yeah,
Is that really
he's
a
a producer, yeah.
Oh.
Famous producer.
I actually don't know him. So that name would already be taken. Unless you put... if you did Dijon Mustard and someone else was DJ Mustard, could you like compete with them and be like, Dijon is better than DJ?
Dijon. There is a D and a J in there, though.
There is.
Dijon.
Dijon.
So there's also Deshaun.
Deshaun.
Yeah, and there's also Sean.
What about Paula?
I already said Paula.
Oh, you did? What about Shimone?
Lorne.
Lauren?
Lauren.
Yes,
L-O-R-N.
Lauren.
He's the guy who runs SNL.
Okay, if that name's going to be taken, though, I demand that Shimone gets taken. Shimone?
No, that's something Michael Jackson said. Michael.
Well, maybe it's someone's name. Someone might have liked it and took it.
I think we could just go.
How about Tyrone?
Kim.
Oh, Kim? That's
Yeah.
a pretty good one. Tyrone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we could go on forever. Not the best. The best news segment, but hey, thanks for watching, and hey, takes a while to suck a cuck, so take your time.
Tell us if we said your name, if you watched through all that, and if you do, say the name in the comments, and if we missed your name, say, hey, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Do it longer next time.
Take a shower.
That's right.
Shower. Shower time.
Shower is power if you're sucking a cuck.